The issue of integration or inability to integrate will persist unless you start thinking of another layer which sits on top of the applications and says, okay, you don't need to speak any language. I will figure out how to talk to you, and I'll figure out how to talk to him, and I'll make them both talk to each other. And once that mediation layer comes into existence, it will be like what people used to call ether, right? It is there everywhere. So that mediation layer, once it spreads into the system, then you will find that you can concentrate. Application A can just concentrate on what it wants. B can concentrate on what it wants. And the communication will be done by this AI-based layer, mediation layer. A strict workflow, that means a workflow that is predefined. But AI augmented to ensure that certain things that need to be transformed and certain things that need to be brought in and understood, etc., that is done using AI, and the rest of it is done using traditional workflow. You will solve more than 50% of today's problems. Mm-hmm. I want the world to wake up to a situation where I can put together a business process that covers a shipping company, an insurance company, a government agency, a bank, and we can assemble the whole thing together, find out knowledge work, and then create your workflow, okay, underneath, which will talk to AI for various things, but still be executing your command. Those solutions are what you need to do straight away. And that will give you far higher success percentage to keep the AI momentum going.
Hello and welcome to the Enterprise Tech Talk podcast. I am your host, Saumitra Kalikar. Now, enterprises have spent decades pursuing one ambition, that is seamless automation. From ERP to APIs and from RPAs to Agentic AI, the technology waves have promised elimination of manual workflows and creation of connected and intelligent enterprises. Yet, despite all these technology innovations, the challenge of enterprise integration and automation continues to resurface. In fact, in most of the organizations, even today, manual handoffs, disconnected systems, and fragmented business processes continue to be part of day-to-day operations. So, have we addressed the automation problem, or are we just getting better at working around it? To unpack this topic, I am joined today by Madhav Sivadas. Madhav is the entrepreneur with almost 30 years of experience in building enterprise software. He also holds many patents, including the one which subsequently resulted in creating robotic process automation technology. He is currently CEO and CTO of Telegrow, where he continues to build next generation enterprise AI. Madhav, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you here.
Thank you very much, Saumitra. Very nice to be here.
Madhav, you have worked across enterprise software, integration platforms, RPA, and now, of course, enterprise AI. So I want to draw on your experience. So if we look back, across last 3 decades, in your view, how enterprise automation has evolved? How fundamentally it has changed, and equally how it has not changed?
Okay, it's going to be a long answer. If you wish to have a long answer, so as you had previously mentioned, I've been around looking at these things for nearly 30 years, and specifically, I've been involved in distributed systems. So from the early 90s through various kinds of early generation distributed systems using Corba and RPC, all the way through to the existence of Java and .NET technologies, and then later on. Now, what has happened is there is in 1968, there's an old article by a person called Melvin Conway. And he wrote that enterprises build systems according to the way the organizations are structured. So, and that later on went on to become what's called Conway's Law. So which means in large enterprises or any enterprise, the software systems directly represent or reflect the way the enterprises are organized. Now, that means there will be lots of applications. So I'm starting the premise from that, right? That there will be lots of applications, and each functional unit of an organization, sub-functional unit, and so on, will partition their software systems in certain organizational mirroring. Now, these systems need at some point to communicate with each other, but they may not have been conceived at some point to speak with each other. So the problem has been around for all of these 3 decades. There were things like MQ Siri, or it still does exist, but messaging was one mechanism where 2 or more disparate systems could try to communicate by sending messages over an asynchronous pipe. Then you had, of course, distributed systems using things like Corba, etc., which were trying to talk to multiple applications residing remotely and talking to each other using certain network protocols. And then we went into the world of web commerce, etc., e-business, so to say. So that started perhaps 1996, 97, 98, 99, all the way up to the dot-com boom. And then those technologies came. So point therefore being, there have been waves of things happening, waves of technologies, and still that old Conway's Law that enterprises will build software according to their organization structures, that holds. And these systems may not always communicate with each other. That also holds. So as a result, we've gone through all these different phases of creating various kinds of integration technologies, but never solved it completely. That is the state of affair today. Okay. Now, the other aspect overlaying this is that all of the past integration technologies have been on the basic understanding that when 2 systems need to talk to each other, they need to develop a standard of communication. And it is, so A talks to B because there is a standard C that A will talk to C, and then C will somehow communicate it back to B. Okay, so there's underlying framework, and that is the foundation of messaging systems, web methods, all of the old IBM technologies, all the Oracle technologies, and so on. So then what happens is when these systems need to talk, they need to agree upon that standard, that communication protocol. And that is what is called EAI, Enterprise Application Integration. Now, all these systems may not wish to speak in a given EAI language because they come from different vintages. So it is with that, in that scenario, that around 2004, we hit upon, or almost accidentally hit upon, this thing called UI integration. Okay. And user interface integration becoming a means of enabling completely unknown applications to be able to speak to each other by talking to their screens. Okay. Now, the hardliners may say that's not enterprise integration because it doesn't follow the hardline criteria of what enterprise integration is all about. But then it enables A and B to talk to each other without needing a C to that A has to comply with and B has to comply with. But on the other hand, now The C is something that will figure out what A is like and what B is like, and then do the communication. Now, that nuance is important because there is something called the onus to comply. It's a term that kind of figured out in my head that in an integration scenario, the onus to comply is on the participating applications in a conventional sense. When A wants to talk to B, A needs to know how to communicate using this C protocol, and then B also needs to be able to speak to them. So these guys need to change their systems to comply with that, and the onus is on A and B in order to talk to each other. So when this world of UI integration came along, that onus shifted to the integration technology. Unlike previously, where the integration technology said, I'll give you a standard, you talk to me in that standard, you talk to me in that standard, and I'll join you up. Here, there is another kind of integration technology that says, don't worry, I don't need you to tell me anything. I don't need you to comply with anything that I have. I will find out what you do and what this guy does, and I'll make the two talk. And that was the birth of UI integration, which then became RPA. Yeah. So to answer your question, this is the state of affairs in the as things have moved over the last 30 years. People have these technology. There will always be disparate applications. There will always be heterogeneous applications, and there will never be a monolithic underlying standard that everybody magically is able to. Okay, so the issue of integration or inability to integrate will persist unless you start thinking of another layer which sits on top of the applications and says, okay, you don't need to speak any language. I will figure out how to talk to you, and I'll figure out how to talk to him, and I'll make them both talk to each other. So I'll pause here and, enable you to continue.
Yeah, no, that's really good background overview, Madhav. So in that journey, do you now see agentic AI as a next step of integration automation, where the new protocols emerging like MCP and A2A, etc. Where would you put those in this whole journey?
Okay, MCP, etc. Again, those are things that a given system may put out to enable tool calling by agents, by AI-enabled pieces of software. That it will work in scenarios where that MCP layer is available. But again, in the world of enterprises today, that is not the case. So you may have a 15-year-old loan origination system in a bank that needs to make a communication with another dozen other things. There are no MCP servers for all of them. And in any way, if they need to communicate with each other, if any of these participants needs to modify itself, you are back to the world of projects, and you have to fund it. You have to put people onto it, etc. So agentic AI will create another set of things to integrate with. But the key thing, according to me, would be for the things that today are, or for all the things that are unintegratable, we can create a mediation layer. Okay. And that mediation layer can be AI driven. Thus, that mediation layer will be able to say, okay, none of you have to make any changes. We will make all the adjustments needed. So if A has a certain data format and A emits everything in a certain format and B wants it in another data format, we now have, using AI, all the wherewithal to convert it from that A's format to the B's format. Okay. Prior to this,
sorry, just to understand there, So how is that specifically different to a typical middleware era where, yes, it supported different formats or different models, data model conversions?
Okay. So in the middleware world, when A needs to communicate with B, he has to be able to figure out what B's protocol is, and someone has to do the mapping.
Yep.
So it is either the project owner of A or the project owner of B of system A or system B that needed to call in and create a project that would then make that mapping happen.
Sure.
Okay. So one of the two participants of this communication leg would have had to modify their systems in order to be able to make this communication happen. And that's a project cost.
Yep.
And this continues to exist today. Of the 30 odd years that we've been in the industry, we can see there is no end to it. It is no end to it because up until now, this ability for something to figure out how these two things are able to talk or what they want, and then be able to take something from one and transform it and give it to the other the way the other one wants it, that has not been possible because of the impedance in the knowledge of what A likes and what B wants. Right? But now with AI, the ability of some of these specific models, you don't need to have frontier models to do all this. You don't need to have an AI frontier model that knows a cheesecake recipe to also provide you data mapping. You don't need to do that. You can have a very simple model, a simple AI model that can be very adept at enterprise data transformations, for example, at enterprise communications, for example. And those are much smaller, much cheaper to implement, and much quicker to provide you the success of this kind of an integration. And once that mediation layer comes into existence, it will be like what people used to call ether, right? It is there everywhere. So that mediation layer, once it spreads into the system, then you will find that you can concentrate. Application A can just concentrate on what it wants. B can concentrate on what it wants. And the communication will be done by this AI-based layer, mediation layer. So that's the kind of a holy grail I think that we should be trying to move towards.
Yeah. Is this what I think you are positioning as intelligent transaction network? Is this the same? Is this the same concept, or is that something different?
Okay. What I do from a work perspective is Telegrow, and Telegrow is promoting a technology called Intelligent Transaction Network. Yes, that is a scenario from a business to business integration perspective. So when you've got multiple entities, businesses, and when they need to collaborate today, there are very few integration mechanisms unless you go for some of those very, very heavyweight things like electronic data interchange, business to business gateways, and some very, very specific business to business connections. But for the large majority, there is nothing. So the intelligent transaction network aims to provide the same kind of capability in a B2B world. But what I mentioned to you earlier is a layer that an enterprise can have within itself.
Yeah.
Okay, and that can be something that they should, and that is something from an enterprise architecture perspective, people should be looking at. According to me, far more urgently than jumping onto AI to do all kinds of all these things that they think it can do.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to move to a different topic, Madhav, just to understand how organizations should be focusing on when they initiate automation programs. And a scenario I can potentially paint in front of you is, if you take, let's say, an insurance industry, right? And claims processing, claims settlement as an end-to-end business process. Often what happens is um, the process is spread across multiple teams or departments within insurance company. Um, yes, maybe a claims team might actually automate document processing, for example, or an underwriting team might actually use AI-assisted risk assessment function, something like that. Yes, so in part those automations happen, but from customer perspective, he still waits for days for a claim to be settled, right? So I wanted to get your thoughts on how organizations should be thinking when it comes to the automation programs broadly, because it seems that many times we focus on departmental or specific siloed automations without looking at end-to-end picture as to how the business process itself should be re-engineered. And so net effect from customer perspective still potentially may not be significantly improved.
Exactly.
And how do you see what kind of advice you will provide to customers on that front? As to how they should be looking at building the proper automation programs?
The first word or phrase that comes to my mind is outcome. Okay, so once you start focusing your results on an outcome, that means I need the claim to be done within 15 minutes of it arriving the border of my perimeter of my organization. Then you will not be looking at, oh, this department or that department, let me digitally transform them, or they will do their stuff, they will do their stuff, etc. When you're in those kinds of worlds, because that's what happens when people are in large enterprises and organizations, they just get covered by the walls of their own departments that they don't see beyond, and they don't see the actual outcome that the business wants. They see the outcome of when it enters their system and when it leaves their system. That's all they know. But the business looks at it at a much higher altitude, looks at it from much higher altitude. Therefore, that outcome is the thing that should drive the transformation. And when that happens, some entity at that level should be able to say, this is how the whole thing works. That means it first comes here. You've got, let's say, document assessment. You've got claim settlement. You've got all those various steps that happen. What are the things that need to be put in place to automate the entire thing so that I get that single outcome of a 10-minute turnaround time or a 5-minute turnaround time, etc., and a 90% or 95% accuracy, right? And when you look at it from that perspective, you will then start looking at all the solutions needed in each of the blocks that comprise the entire solution. Right? So that is what needs to be transformed. Because if everyone looks at it from their own perspective, they'll just do something that is relevant to them, but the total outcome or the overall time will still remain the same.
Yeah.
Okay. Same thing goes for underwriting. Same thing goes for things as complex as trade finance. Okay. Trade finance also involves receiving documents from different kinds of entities. You got buyers, sellers, issuing banks, settling banks. You got all kinds of entities involved in a single transaction. And if the bank or the organization only looks at their thing, the outcome will still remain many days of latency. One entity may say, "I've done my part." So so outcome is what you need to look for, and you need to stitch together all the technologies needed to make the entire outcome within that particular figure or that statistic that you wish to achieve, or that metric that you wish to achieve.
Yeah, and just building on that, I also wanted to get your thoughts on how enterprises should be looking at, first thing, building their maturity around automation, but how should they be measuring the maturity around automation at enterprise level? Because as we discussed, most of the programs focus on siloed metrics, like for a particular department, how much productivity I have achieved. But if we are to now start thinking at an enterprise level, well, the organization is really pushing for automations, seamless end-to-end automations. What kind of key indicators they should be focusing on, or drivers they should be focusing on, so that they become more enterprise level success measures?
People have attempted to do this so many times. Okay. They have created for every new technology that comes in, they bring centers of excellence and they sit and create all these different metrics. I've not seen any of them working. Okay. But when it now comes to the new wave of AI-driven automations, uh, uh, I think what they should be looking at, I'll go back again to that phrase, that they should be looking at the end result that they wish, and they should bring together or assemble all the participating entities and start looking at how those communication channels can be bridged in the shortest possible way. And the key thing to be done is all of this has to happen with little or no changes to any of the participating organizations or participating systems. Because the moment you make changes to these systems, then we've gone back to the old era of complying with something that is a product of this wave. When this wave gives way to another wave, then you will again go back to changing your systems. So you have to switch to a world where every time something happens, these composing or component applications don't need to make changes. Because they're most likely doing a very good job of the functionality that they were built to do. That is a fundamental thing, right? A financial system, a loan system, or a core banking system, an underwriting system, they do their things pretty well, rock solid, because they've been around for 20, 30 years, at least 15 to 20 years. You make them do, you open them up and change them or rip them out and create a new one just in order to comply with something that has come in new. Maybe it was a thick client system, but now that's too old and archaic and I don't want to use Citrix, so let me make it web-based. So when you made that, you threw away 25 years of a lot of engineering and a lot of knowledge. So when you keep doing that, so when you comply with things just to fit the technology of that wave, then you're not doing any good, is according to me. Okay. Yeah. Of course, you need to web enable. Definitely you need to. You can't be living in the client application. I fully agree. But the core point being that in order to now automate, if you need to make changes, that is something you should avoid, and you should bring in something else that will do that bridging of that communication for you, so that your internal systems or your core systems remain the same.
Right. Okay. Let me test that, because that's a really interesting point or perspective that you have painted. Let me test it from by bringing or drawing the parallel with how we use RPA, right? In the last decade. Now, RPA was definitely a success in the last decade, and one of potentially, in my view, why it was successful was it really helped in automating the mundane, repeatable tasks within existing processes, right? So it really gave very quick benefits in that sense. So definitely played a really key role in realizing quick benefits. But an argument also always goes against RPA, that while it helped us to realize quick benefits, it just automated the existing processes as they were being executed. It didn't allow us to re-engineer the processes. It didn't allow us to find ways to optimize those processes, right? If we just use RPA to automate what was already being done manually. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that, as to, do you see that was potentially a learning, or even if I use a strong word, a mistake in the RPA world that we should be learning from when we are now actually getting into agentic era world, and we want to use now this new technology for process automation? Should we be, the simple question is simple, should we be again using agentic AI to just automate what is already existing processes, or we should actually take a step back and really re-engineer the processes before we invest into agentic AI?
Okay, so yeah, this has been a subject. This topic has been around, let's say, from some 2013, 14 onwards. Okay, 12 is around the time I say that the word RPA started becoming, repeated many times by people. 2012. Okay, so yes, and I'll give you an elaborate answer for this. When we created UI automation, we never called it RPA, by the way. It wasn't initially meant to do what it is doing today. Okay, our background has been enterprise integration, so we are from EAI world, and we got into this because there were people who we were selling EAI to who strongly rejected our sales pitches of the WebSphere, WebLogic type of integration technologies. They said, we are a large regional conglomerate. We've got hundreds of applications. We're not going to buy your $20 million thing and do things, because these applications are running pretty well. Yes, we do want them to talk to each other, and but for that, I'm not going to make big changes. That's what was told to me and people that along in my team when we were working in other companies trying to sell conventional integration. So we created UI integration in response to that. We didn't create UI integration to rapidly convert all these human activities, etc. All that happened much later. So the birth of UI automation initially, according to me, was not for the kind of things that it is ended up doing today. So that is point one. Then it is around 2009-10 that when we went from Singapore to India to see certain scenarios in BPO organizations, that's when we realized that, oh, this is something that our UI integrator tool can be used in, which is it can be put in front of an agent's desk, and what they've been doing with 5 or 6 applications, this thing can do on its own. The agent can go back home. Or they can, a 20 person process can now be managed by 5 people. That was how this thing took birth. It was being done, of course, by another competing company in the contact center world. Okay, in US, Israel, etc. But in the non-contact center world, we were the ones who brought in the concept that maybe this UI integration can do this. Now, at some point, the situation went out of control, and people that we spoke about this to, they decided that we're going to take every process that is there and we're going to put this thing and try to speed it up. That's when you have this scenario of, you make an inefficient process automated. You only, magnify or create further issues when you take an already inefficient process and you try to speed it up. So those things, like I said, came much later when people, you introduce something to the world, but then the world decides to take it in a different direction. Okay, so that is what I think, or I feel from my perspective, with what happened. And it is then that people came up with the idea that, we must do process re-engineering. We must understand what is the lean waste, what is the, they bring in Six Sigma, lean and all of that. And then they used to do time and motion studies, first have again, good old word, a good old phrase, center of excellence. Then a center of excellence has a team. They start reviewing all the different processes of the organization, and then there's a stack of them, and some boss decides, I'm going to take the next first 15 of them and try to engineer them or re-engineer them, etc. So those were things that some people were doing. But then when you started seeing 50, 60%, 80% benefits, there is a natural vacuum or a suction that happens. Let's deploy this everywhere. And then when that happens and things fail, then there is, the traditional, the hype, and then the trough of disillusionment. So the disillusionment started. It went up because there was a heightened expectancy. And then not everyone was capable of understanding which processes need to be automated. How should those automations take place? You have a tool, but if you don't use the tool properly, you may create very dangerous outcomes. So, and that is what created all the failure scenarios, which then became very famous. The consultants who created various studies of how RPA has failed, 40% failure here, 30% failure there, etc. And then that became, a sort of another cloud. Whenever you hear the term RPA, there are certain good things, but then there's that cloud of failures. Mm-hmm. Now that can happen with AI as well. So when you come and to bring the world of AI, agentic AI, you're likely to face the same kind of situations where the initial success of a few things will cause some eager people to spray it onto a whole bunch of things, and it'll all start failing. There is a term, it may not be politically correct, but it's still something worth every IT leader should know. And that term is, that saying is, a fool with a tool is still a fool. Okay, so you give an intelligent or a very smart tool to someone who is not capable of understanding its usage, you will end up creating solutions that may not be adequate, and it will not be serving the purpose. And in fact, it may be contrary to what you were wanting it to do. Yeah. So just having a tool is not going to be enough. You need to have people who understand how to use the tool, where to apply it. So you need all of that, and only then you can apply, whether it was RPA or whether it is agentic AI today.
Yeah. And so because many organizations today are at this juncture where they are initiated, most of the organizations are definitely experimenting with agentic AI. Some organizations are now trying to productionize it. And I think, to your point, many organizations could be at that juncture where if they see success, they will start accelerating AI investment more, faster. And the risk could be the same as that happened with in the era of RPA, where organizations will sprawl of agentic systems and solutions across different departments in the organization without having a proper understanding of what should be the approach, or which process should be engineered. But also, what are the key important architecture foundation those should be laid out for it.
Absolutely.
Right? So, absolutely. What advice would you provide to those organizations where they might be sensing some success, but what kind of precaution or advice you will provide to them to how they should be approaching the proper scaling of agentic solutions?
Okay. So, the old style, the general consulting style would have been center of excellence. Okay, bring in a bunch of 5 or 6 people in your organization who will do this. But I've seen centers of excellence fail. Okay, and they become bottlenecks. So I will refrain from going by using that very easy solution, center of excellence. But I would say that the technology organization of every enterprise must look at these. For one thing, they should not do is they shouldn't be looking at these frontier models to do all these things as if somehow by magic it is going to solve problems for you. Okay. A frontier model has a whole bunch of training data. Some of it is good, some of it may not be good. Today, you will use it only for providing a whole bunch of context. So this is how your typical token usage happens. You provide it a lot of context and you say, okay, what do you make out of this? And then you build an agentic layer out of it, saying you will prompt the creation of agents by saying, get this, review it, go and check something and put it into a loop. See if this is there, see if that is there, right? Now, every single thing in the world does not lend itself to being agentically solved. In fact, today, the most important things that need to be done really don't need this kind of agentic solution. You still need AI, but you don't need this AI that self-thinks all these things. Even if you were to create a workflow AI, that means a strict workflow, that means a workflow that is predefined, but AI augmented to ensure that certain things that need to be transformed and certain things that need to be brought in and understood, etc., that is done using AI, and the rest of it is done using traditional workflow. You will solve more than 50% of today's problems. Today's CTO problems, CTO, CIO problems can be solved today.
Yeah.
Okay. You use AI for those things that you could not have used conventional technologies for before, and still rely on an underbelly, which is still a workflow executor. If you then replace the workflow executor with an agentic AI, where it can do whatever it feels like, that I think will result in a lot more failures. And it'll again bring you down into this trough of disillusionment.
Yeah.
So rather than going that way, let's bring agentic AI everywhere, and for everything we create agents, we try to take a more mature approach. Let's look at augmenting our workflows with AI, maybe agentic if required, and make the actual workflow complete successfully.
Yeah.
I think that will be my approach, and that will give us, according to me, lot more a much higher success percentage, which will then help continue to push the AI agenda.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what will happen? Same thing. There will be a research study that says AI has failed, the agentic AI has failed, 30% of projects have failed, $9 billion have been wasted, tokens exhausted, all of that story.
Yeah. There was, I think, an MIT research which indicated around 90% of AI pilots do not get to production.
Right.
And I think I would also probably add to what you just said. I mean, yes, traditional workflows would also continue to deliver value. And also when it comes to AI, agentic AI is just one aspect of that. Your traditional AI, the ML-based AI, that has given the organizations benefits for last many years, and that would still continue to deliver value for many use cases.
Of course. So where there is analytics, there's analysis of large volumes of data, you can use those techniques. You can customize. You don't need to use, again, frontier models for that. You can customize things for yourselves within your large organization, so that you query that AI-based system to derive answers for your those kind of judgment-related or assistance-related queries.
Yeah.
So a lot of the customer service, all of these could use AI significantly. Okay, so a typical thing today or in the past, we've tried to talk to robotic agents or typed things into chatbots, for your in telco companies, banks, airlines. I'm not able to book this. I'm not able to rebook this ticket. What can be done? And you get responses that are based on very stock standard situations, right? Even today. despite having. So what have they done? They've just set up a language generator, meaning it can respond to you in English or whatever language, but it doesn't have the skills to be able to understand what you're saying and say, oh, you've come up with a very unique problem. You're not able to change your booking of this airline and this thing because of a unique situation with your fare class on this and that and that. And my online system can't solve it for you because it's not geared for that. My agent's not able to solve it for you because they're not geared for that. This is how it can be solved.
Yeah.
You still don't have that. And if you can do that, you will create a customer satisfaction and customer delight beyond what you can imagine. But they still have not done that. So that's another use of AI.
Yeah, absolutely. The difference I'm saying in the when RPA took off versus the current where we are currently in terms of agentic world, it's not only the enthusiasm from technical people that is of course there, and no surprise there. It's a new technology, but there is a top-down pressure from boards now. This is a new thing. I don't remember that kind of top-down pressure was there in the RPA era or any other era, right? Because for whatever reasons, agentic AI has become such a visible thing. There is a pressure coming right from top down as to what we are doing in the agentic era world. What are our use, how we are investing, or what use we are delivering. So, to your point, I think the middle management, the architects, and those guys need to provide a much clearer, transparent, and honest way as to really where the new agentic use cases are important versus where we can deliver value with existing AI and existing workflows.
Yes, and to further your point, unfortunately, in the world today, a good chunk of work that humans are doing can actually be done now automatically through the use of these technologies. Maybe politically incorrect, maybe socially, creating situations, but those jobs, what they call knowledge work, those jobs came into existence because of inadequacies of existing or at that time prevailing software systems. Okay, so you had 2 or 3 systems that people had. They wouldn't talk to each other, so a human was brought in, and that human started doing this particular activity, and then they became specialists in that. Right now, with AI being able to do all of that, this particular human's role becomes questionable. Similarly, there could be various other decision or analysis types activity, which we call knowledge work, which can now be completely done by AI-based systems, appropriately trained. Again, not using vanilla models, but appropriately trained models. In addition to, providing the right kind of search data, context, etc. You can, and some workflow. Okay, all of that together will be able to create solutions that completely remove the need for huge chunks of humans in an organization. And that is going to happen. It's a matter of time. Now, one may wish to resist that. Okay, there may be social implications, but I feel that eventually the profitability, etc., of a business and organization of enterprises will give way, and these optimizations will happen. Okay, so from a board perspective, what people would think of is, since I'm able to sit on my chat GPT and I can do all these great things, why aren't you doing this for the company? That's what the board member is asking. That's why you have all these pressures. The same pressure, you're right, didn't exist in RPA because there wasn't a board member who could use an RPA on his mobile and then say, hey, this is looking good, why don't you do it, right? So, but now with AI, you can do that. Right? But the consequence is many chunks of positions will now become redundant. Okay, so because the whole thing can be done. Now, to be safe, you will keep one person or two people or 10% of the workforce. But the remaining 90% may not be relevant once this AI thing comes through. And AI already has all the capabilities today to make that happen. It's not like it needs to do anything more or improve in order to make. Right now, you can do it.
Right. Yeah. I agree. Okay. Look, there is one specific area I want you to explore with you, Madhav, when it comes to integration and automation, and mainly because you predominantly nowadays work into the B2B integration scenarios. For in the B2B world, organizations have historically invested into more into digital portals to start with. When it came to automating some of the tasks, right? They build it, supply portals, partner portals, whatnot, right? Customer portals. While it helped to a certain extent, definitely improving experience, but in the hindsight, it shifted the work from manual work into the digital space. Right, the core focus about eliminating the work itself and automating in what I would say straight through execution of transactions across customers and companies, or between the partners and company, etc. That didn't go away, right? That was not realized. And I wanted to get your thoughts firstly on why this straight through execution continues to be challenge in the B2B world. I come from telco background. I know how in Australia, for example, how NBN and telcos now they have established this whole B2B, but it took a long time to build that. But with most of the industries, this continues to be a tough challenge as to how partners and the whole ecosystem can work together. Right? I wanted to get your thoughts initially on why that continues to be such a big challenge. Most of the organizations settle on partner portals, but not going all the way to straight through executions. And what can be done within industries to improve on that?
So this is a topic more dear and near to me at this point in my organization. Okay, so as you rightly said, the existence of portals and what we call self-service portals, either it could be employee self-service or customer self-service or partner self-service. So basically, one entity has created an application that is called a portal and is available on the web, and all their counterparties, whether they are employees, customers, partners, they will log into that application. Okay, great. So for every communication that you need to do with that particular entity, you log into their app and do things. So their side is great, is working okay, at least this part of it.
Yeah.
Okay. But what about the entities that need to actually sit in front of a PC and do this thing? Okay. So you're right, even in telco and many other systems, this problem is there. The interim solution has been RPA. Okay, where some of these players will say, oh, it's so difficult for me to do it, so let me put an RPA to communicate with that app. We, in 2007, 2008, implemented one such RPA for one such Australian telco to be able to communicate with another Australian telco. Okay, so you can imagine who those telcos are, right? Sure. So one of the Australian telcos had a self-service app that provided bulk leasing and bulk line provisioning capabilities. And the smaller telcos would have to log in and do a lot of things in order to provision those lines and set up the routes, etc. And that was creating issues. In that scenario, it was most of it was rekeying issues, meaning the keying in of data, even if they go one digit here and there, it can create big mistakes. So we created a UI automation. In those days, it wasn't called RPA. Okay. So the history, therefore, has been that when you have these kinds of latencies, that one entity provides an interface and thinks everything is over, everything is done. All the other partners or counterparties sit and struggle to enter things. Each counterparty which has got money will invest in some kind of RPA to automate this route. But that's a sporadic thing. Some people would, some people won't. Now, that creates still the latency that exists in this entire system is still present. What companies and organizations haven't understood is that the world is not themselves only. Most organizations think this is my world and everything revolves around my organization. But in reality, a business transaction goes through many organizations. Lots of business transactions go through many organizations. And sporadically fixing some point-to-point solution will not help using RPA. So you need some capability that can do everything. Now, some entities, telcos, banks, etc., try to achieve automation by creating standards. So that is the traditional way of automation or B2B smoothing things out, is you create a standard. Once you create a standard, then it's up to all the participants to comply with the standard, and then game over, everything works. Right? But there are situations, and that may work for a few things. There have been standards for EDI, for example. There's been standards like SWIFT and the ISO standards for money transfer. Certain things work. But then I would see this as an iceberg. The things that are working up just the tip of the iceberg sticking out of the water. There is still the largest chunk, the 95% of things that happen between companies cannot be standardized. The other thing that goes against standards is the cost of complying with a standard. So people will bear the cost when it comes to the largest or the most valuable or the most meaningful things in their company, in their enterprise. Everything else, they'll push it under the carpet, and they will send it to overseas capability centers, outsourcing, shared service, whatever you want to call it today. Okay? And it will be done manually. So the scenario is that in reality, you want to wake up to a world where business to business is also automated and composable. This is what is things that we are working on, which is dear to me. Mm-hmm. I want the world to wake up to a situation where I can put together a business process that covers a shipping company, an insurance company, a government agency, a bank, and we can assemble the whole thing together. And that will be an end-to-end process that's completely automated, with all the work being done by the individual entities' IT systems. We don't have the capability to do all the business logic. Okay, so the point we're trying to make, therefore, is all of this standardization is not going to work everywhere. Point-to-point RPA kind of solution is not going to work everywhere. Simply creating a self-service portal and telling everybody to hit it is not going to work also, because all of them will end up in lots of inefficiencies. And the end-to-end business process will suffer. To solve that, you need a system that can, wherever required, use RPA, use EAI, use EDI, and achieve the outcome of connecting from business A to business B somehow, and do all the transformations that may be needed in order to get the data packet from A to B. Simply having a self-service portal will not solve the job. It is definitely a step forward. It is better than not having it.
Mm.
Okay. But having created one, these people should not go back home and saying, okay, our job is done.
Mm.
A CTO or an organization that understands that will then will lend themselves to participating in a network. And that network will then be able to do this kind of business to business or enterprise to enterprise automation. It will involve use of AI, use of agentic AI, use of workflows, and the use of integration technology. So all four things.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And main thing is it should not cause anything on the participant side to change as a result of this participation. Because again, if you do that, then you're going back to the world of I need to comply with you in order to talk to you.
Yeah.
The moment I need to comply with you to talk to you, then I need to run a project inside to make my systems comply with you.
Yeah.
Okay. In a larger scheme of things, that will not work out. So the world has to come to a system that can allow people to plug and play.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. So that is where I think the world should be moving towards. And
Yeah.
AI provides all of us a very good set of tooling to start, walking that direction.
Yeah. No, that's good. No, thanks. Look, as we start wrapping up, Madhav now,
Mm.
I wanted to get your final thoughts on uh, what advice you will offer to CIOs or CTOs who would be at this juncture thinking of or started initial investment into AI, building their AI strategies for the long term. What coming to what we discussed earlier, what key things, key learnings they should be building upon from previous integration eras, and what key one or two important inputs or advices you will offer to them.
Okay. Key thing would be look at all the knowledge work that is going on. Okay. And you will find that a whole big chunk of it can now be completely taken out. Everything that perhaps you used to do in terms of, let's say, in the old days, okay, 60s, 70s, and early 80s, everything that had to do with storage of data, with one sweep, the world of the technology of databases killed it. No more ledgers, no more writing into long paper, right? No more filing of things. With one sweep, database turned that out, or took that out. In the same way, with one sweep, the current state of maturity of AI can take out a huge chunk of knowledge work or so-called knowledge work. So you should look at how that can be achieved within your organization. It will be the first thing. Now, doing that will not, the natural tendency will be to use a, for want of a better word, to abdicate. Like, I don't know how to do, you do it. Okay. And it's AI, you do it for me. So there is a natural tendency that you will just say, I'll bring a strong AI frontier model and I'll say, this is the problem. And the AI will just give me the solution. That will again lead to failure. So the advice would be find out knowledge work and then create your workflow, okay, underneath, which will talk to AI for various things, but still be executing your command. Those solutions are what you need to do straight away. And that will give you far higher success percentage to keep the AI momentum going. If you throw everything over the wall to a frontier model to do, and then it gives you something back and it fails, then some of it will work, some of it won't. And then you will get a mixed reaction. Okay. So these are the two main things I would want people to do. I am refraining from saying set up centers of excellence. Okay, because that's an easy thing to do. Okay, have few selected people, and the way that has played out in two waves. So RPA was one wave. SOA, just before RPA, there was another wave called service-oriented architecture. Okay, so these two we have seen how COEs, centers of excellence, have played out in SOA, and we've seen how centers of excellence have played out in RPA. Some of them have worked. I'm sure those who have participated in this, they will say, "Oh, well, it worked." Okay, yes, it worked. Some places it worked, but it has also caused lots of frustration, because then that COE becomes the a choke point.
Choke points, governance overhead. Yeah.
Yes, too much. You need governance. You can do all of that. So you can have your governance, your AI related stuff. All of that's underlying. Those are foundational things. But I wouldn't look at it that way anymore. That is the normal tendency from a consulting perspective to go that way, and I've done it. So perhaps I may have been one of the earliest creators of the PowerPoints for establishing a COE for RPA, for UI automation. Again, it wasn't called RPA in those days. Okay, and we had to really scratch our brains. What do you think we should have? Well, let's go back to SOA. SOA had said, have 4 people from here, 2 people from here, and they create governance. So governance is a nice term. Put governance there, and so we start. Right, we go. Right? So it's easy to bring things from the past and just repeat it. But I think some people will still end up doing it, right? Yeah. So, but I would say you continue to do whatever is the logical thing. But the main thing to do is knowledge work. Okay, understand all the knowledge work that is happening in the organization, and create a workflow plus AI combined that will be able to replace that knowledge work. Yeah, that's what I think is the way to go, according to me.
Yeah, Madhav, on that note, thanks for your time. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
I think there were so many nuggets of wisdom, I would say, and advice to all the business and technology leaders. There are definitely not many positive takeaways for all of us. So thanks again. It was really a pleasure hosting you. If you found this discussion valuable, please follow and subscribe to Enterprise Tech Talk. And thanks for listening. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.